What is up, podheads? Back with another episode of the Podioslave podcast. My name is Tony, and this is becoming Radio 101. No, I keep doing this every week. I don't know what else to do. I know I had the POD heads a few weeks ago, but yeah, it's become muscle memory. But Anthony, I'm joined by Anthony. I'm Tony. How you doing tonight, man?
All right, I'm gonna flip it. How are you doing? No one cares how I'm doing. People want to know how you.
No one ever asks me, man. Thank you.
You're the mouthpiece, right? You're the first person people actually. The Trawl intro is the first thing people hear. Then after that, it's your voice. It's the golden pipe. Golden pipes.
I don't know about that, but it's the dulcet tones of tone. Yeah. I'm doing well. I appreciate you asking, and you're right. I don't get that very often. So samesies, doing well, as Nate would say.
Hey, is that a canned answer?
No, I'm tired. We're doing an intro for an episode that is going to come out probably 10 days from this actual recording, but the conversation was phenomenal. I'm excited for people to hear it. And, you know, work, life, all that stuff gets in the way, but nerdery always prevails, and here we are doing it.
Well, I was just thinking, I think in the early days of the podcast, when we would interview people, I think we did this intro before the conversation, and then after the conversation, we'd have a reaction.
We did. Yeah, for a long time.
And I'm thinking, did anyone stick around for those reactions? So now we always, I'm trying to think of when that changed, but we always record the intro after we have the conversation. So we've already chatted with Mike. If you clicked on the episode, you know we chatted with Mike Ciprari of SJC Drums. Yeah, I don't like doing it the other way.
No, and I think getting rid of the reaction was probably a good thing. At the same time, I enjoy doing those, but we just now do it after the fact, not recorded. You guys don't get to hear it. You know, if you really want to hear it, shoot us a DM, and maybe we'll tell you down the line what we talked about. But you know, we don't do that anymore. So it's just you clicked on this because you want to hear Mike Ciprari talk about SJC Drums, and we know that. So we're gonna let you guys have that for the majority of the episode.
Well, I was just thinking, what if the conversation sucked? You could have been all excited on the front end. You have the conversation, and then the
womp womp,
the tone of the recap is super downer, and it's
yeah. Oh man, that was awesome. I guess, yeah. No, we haven't had too many of those, which has been awesome, and this one is no slouch. It was a really fun conversation. It's one that you and I had talked about for a while doing, and it finally was let's make this happen. And Mike, as we'll get into here shortly, was very responsive via DMs and email. He's quick to the draw on that stuff, and you know, probably grew up a similar time frame as us, and that's what we do. We're just always online and ready to go and ready to chat and have fun, and this is no exception.
Well, yeah, I think it was. I don't know. I think it might have been the episode with the 4-year anniversary and with Todd Mackey with Honor, where I think we said we'll chat with everyone, and we kind of debrief with Nate, our third host, about how it's all inclusive and all encompassing. Who have we chatted with? Band members, producers,
photographers,
venue owners,
yep,
yeah, all that stuff,
talent buyers, yep.
But we haven't had a founder of a drum company yet. Until now,
manufacturer
of any instrument, right? Have we? I think this is the first.
I don't think. Yeah, this is the first one, and the story is phenomenal. And you know, we all kind of dream of making that thing in our basement, our grandmother's basement, our attic, or whatever, and having it blow up and take off. And that's kind of what happened here with SJC Drums. And it's a cool conversation. It's a cool story, and you know, born of that kind of late '90s, early 2000s. Nose to the grindstone New England mentality that we came from as well. We related to a lot of what he had to say.
And that's the thing with this podcast. You don't know where it's going to take us. You know, from being in rooms with Mike 20 years ago to chatting with him now, it all makes sense. It was meant to be. And the fact that you're listening now is meant to be. So let's get into it. Mike Ciprari, SJC Drums. Let's go. All right, we're here with Mike Ciprari, SJC Drums. Mike, thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got 3 New England guys in the room, and we're familiar with the SJC story. I saw No Trigger 20 years ago, you know. And actually, how's your memory, Mike?
It's pretty good. Yeah, I still have a decent memory. So,
do you remember All About Records?
Dude, of course.
Yeah, of course. That's where I saw it. That's the first time I saw No Trigger.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, we played there with a Wilhelm Scream a couple times, and I was literally just the other day, I think last night, reminiscing about when I saw Folly. Remember that band from New Jersey?
Oh yeah, little ska influence there, some
Yeah,
breakdowns. Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, they were amazing. I saw them in like the basement of All About Records. What was the dude's name that ran that? Do you remember?
I don't remember his name, but I do have a story about the show. So on the All About Records website, there
Yeah.
was a mailing address on the website. So my idiot head thought that was the location of the venue.
Oh,
It was his parents' house. So for that show, it was in 2004. It was May. I looked it up. My sister and I drove down from Maine. We drive through this neighborhood, and we see this house. We're like, weird. It's a basement show. Sweet. It was the guy's house. It was his parents' house. It was just a mailing address.
That's amazing. Well, we played our fair share of basement shows, that's for sure. So maybe you saw us in the basement too. But yeah, dude, All About Records. That dude did such a cool job, like keeping that scene going in Massachusetts for a long time. That's awesome. Long time ago, man.
Yeah, 20 years. I don't know where the time went, but yeah. So a few years before that, we know that's when you started SJC Drums. Was music always the thing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, when I was 9, I don't know what I was doing. I feel like it was like MTV or something. I was really into listening to the radio and watching MTV, and I saw Refused had a music video, and I was like, this is crazy. The music video was crazy, and the song was nuts. So I fell in love with that. I fell in love with Rancid and Green Day, and what made me want to be a drummer was I heard Down from 311 and the snare drum.
Nice.
Dude, that snare drum is
Chad, man.
yeah, man. He just has such good chops, and like to this day, that snare drum is my favorite snare sound I've ever heard. And I was just like, I want to be a drummer. So it was always I was always in love with music since I was like 9.
Similar story to us. I mean, we obviously were doing the
Definitely.
same stuff, watching those 311 videos on MTV and listening to our local rock radio. And
Yeah.
I can vibe with that all day, especially the 311 stuff, man. Love those guys. Always been a fan.
Yeah, yeah. And I was really lucky too. Like my parents were super supportive and definitely didn't have like a music house. My parents just listened to the radio like when we were in the car and stuff, but like no one really played an instrument. And my brother and I just fell in love with music. He started playing saxophone and learning how to like read and write music. And I was taking drum lessons. My parents were bringing me to drum lessons and like high school marching band and jazz band and stuff, like just learning how to play the drums. And I was obsessed, like just straight up obsessed with drums. And my brother eventually became obsessed with drums too, and wanted to play. And I was reminiscing about this the other day as well. He like went and like prior to the internet, like no Craigslist existed. It was like the Yellow Pages. He saw like a ad for a used drum set, and like went and got it and tore it apart and spray painted it. And I was like, that looks really sick. Like I want something like that. You know, can you make me one? And he just was tinkering with building drums in our backyard and eventually our grandma's basement. And I was always like hanging out watching what he was doing. And I was really into graphic design and website building for No Trigger or whatever band I was in to like promote tours, you know? So I just made a logo and started like going to Kinko's flyering like SJC Custom Drums, like my brother's initials, and get a drum set from us, you know, and like sneaking into Warped Tour and stuff. So it was always just like there. We never sat down and we're like, we're going to make a business and build drums and hire people and have a business. You know, we were just messing around, and it turned into what it is now, you know, and I'm super grateful for that.
Well, it all starts with a passion. And did you have a good setup at your house to drum? Because that was always the barrier to entry, like amongst our group. Nate, who is on with us, one of our co-hosts, not on tonight, obviously. He always wanted to drum, but there was no setup, so he just didn't. It didn't happen, you know.
Yeah, dude, man, that's the thing. In like my later years in life, and like I have a son now, and you know, I'm a dad, and I have such passion and gratitude for my parents and for parents that support their kids and caretakers that support their kids, whether it's taking them to lessons or, you know, showing them music and trying to inspire them, or allowing them to do, you know, jazz band at school or hang out at their friend's band practice. You know, like all of those things I think are so important to immerse yourself completely. And man, I'm so lucky. There were no barriers to entry for me or my brother. Like I asked for a drum set for Christmas and my parents got me a kit, you know? And it was always just like I felt thankful. So I was like, I'm gonna work hard and I love this and I'm gonna put everything into it. Still gonna do good in school, gonna make my parents proud and like make that not an issue. I don't wanna have to hear about homework or any of that. I just want to get it done so I can go play my drums, you know? I want to graduate so I can go on tour. I want to, I want to do whatever. And so we had a sick basement. It was like two sides. My brother and his band, he was in a hardcore ska band called the Danger Strangers. So I was always like setting his kid up and going to shows with them and tagging along with them. And yeah, man, my brother and I would just go to shows together all the time, and us and our buddies. It was just always that. And our house was the place to go. All of our friends came over. Touring bands, like when the Swellers or the Aquabats came through, they'd stay at my parents' basement.
Oh, that's fun. That's awesome.
It was crazy. So like, we had the perfect setup. And then when the drum company started being a thing, it was like my grandma's house was right in like the back of my house where we grew up. So my office was my bedroom. My grandma's basement was the workshop. My parents' basement was like the drum, the studio, if you will, where we'd practice and record demos, and just literally a compound of like music and people stopping by. And then eventually, like Kurt Ballou from Converge wanted some drums for God City in Salem. So he came by with Ben, and Streetlight Manifesto is coming by my grandma's basement, dude. And like, it was the drummer disco rolled through. Like, it was just so crazy thinking about it. My parents and my grandparents were so cool with like all of that. It was such a madhouse. And
like, Mike, who are these grown men coming through our basement?
Dude, it was like a madhouse constantly of just like people and just people sleeping over my parents' house. They were always making us food and like hosting. It was so rad. So yeah, anyway, long story there, but sorry. It's just I'm thankful for that, and I've got a soft spot for any parent that supports their kids that way. It's so important.
That's an amazing story, because you're right.
Totally.
Like, you need that barrier. You don't want that barrier to entry to get into the thing that you love, and you didn't have it. Like, you're jumping in, you and your brother, and you've got your parents' support to have all these random people staying over and asking for drums and all this stuff. That's wild.
Yeah, the Aquabats, when they stayed over, they were on tour with another band that had this like super old, massive tour bus, and they parked it in front of our house, and there was like 25 people one night. And I called them at like midnight after the House of the Blues show. I'm like, we're gonna have a few people over tonight, and they're like, all right, cool. Like, it was like 25 adults sleeping.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
You get like tents and stuff in the backyard.
Like, I can say we legit had a pizza pool party. If anybody knows the Aquabats and knows their songs and their lyrics, they have a song called I think it's either Pool Party or Pizza Party. Don't quote me on it, but it's one of those. And we legit had a pool party with the Aquabats, like when I was like 18 or 19 years old. So cool.
I thought you were gonna say they wrote that song that night.
So you're living this kind of early dream, really, right? Being able to do all this stuff. How do you guys like start sourcing materials to put these drum kits together for different people? Because you go from just, oh, cool, we're breaking one down in the backyard and spray painting and doing stuff and having fun with it, to, oh, somebody wants a loadout. Like, how do we get to that point?
Yeah, dude, that was all my brother, man. He was so infatuated with finding different suppliers, and this is like, internet's new, right? So it's very hard to like figure out where to source stuff and suppliers. So he was getting magazines, he was driving to New York, he was becoming friends with other drum builders in the area and really networking and doing that. Started just calling up like Remo, hey, can I buy drum heads from you? And they're like, we can set you up as a vendor. How many do you want to buy? He's like, 4. And they're like, just go to Guitar Center.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, wait, who are you?
Like, I wanted to see if there's a price break. I'll probably buy 4 more in a month, And so he was doing that, and he was working at a service center of our dad's car dealership. Our dad sold cars, so he was an entrepreneur, and I was always picking his brain on like, all right, how do I do this accounting? How do I do, this, and this customer's mad? Or what do I do here for a deal to make them feel extra special? Whatever. We were just always in it. and I was working at Dunkin' Donuts and a grocery store, and he was working at the parts department. We were just earning money to buy drum parts, to legitimately go to Guitar Center and be like, we're going to buy 4 drum heads. Like, and we took a corner of my grandma's basement, and I remember I would go in and he's like, I bought a router table. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, watch what it does. And he would like cut the bearing edges. And I was like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like you're building a drum, dude. That's insane. And he started refurbishing friends' drums in high school. And I eventually started like networking with other drummers on like Pure Volume. I'd find bands on Pure Volume. And I made this little graphic design business where I would make logos and websites and stickers, and became friends with this kid named Pat D out in Pennsylvania, made some stickers for his band. Eventually, No Trigger played a show with his band, met. He ordered a snare drum, became friends with Andrew Cook, who was playing in the receiving end of Sirens, and all the Massachusetts bands like Wilhelm Scream, Monty R.I., who used to be called Monty's Fan Club. Just like
Monty's Fan Club, yeah.
Dude, you know, and I would just go to shows, and we'd put on our own VFW hall shows. So my brother had his ska band. I was in a pop punk band at the time that eventually became No Trigger. And we were putting on shows at Knights of Columbus VFWs and going to Kinko's at 2 a.m. to make flyers to flyer it. So we were just always around people in music. So the networking part was kind of seemed natural, I guess, because people were like, what's SJC? Or I'd be like, hey, Justin Weir from Monty's Fan Club, like, I love your band. Do you want a drum set? And he's just like, you can do that? And I was like, yeah, come to my grandma's basement. And we'll like look at colors and stuff. And yeah, so my brother was sourcing parts. I was making logos and networking and making shows. And it just became a whole thing until we went to college. And he went for music education up in Portland, Maine. And I went to UMass Dartmouth for marketing. And so we were just meeting up every weekend from college. He'd drive down on a Friday. I'd drive back on a Friday, band practice, build drums in grandma's basement, Sunday night, go back to school. He graduated, I dropped out. And that was kind of it. But he was always doing homework on like finding suppliers and different techniques with cutting bearing edges and different wood and paint techniques. And I'm going to build us a powder coating system in grandma's basement, find an oven. I'm like, all right, like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Like, it was crazy. And trial by fire, everything we did, he would just, I'm surprised both of us have all 10 fingers still, honestly. Like he went for it, cutting on a table saw. It was nuts. It was crazy thinking about that. Like grandma's basement, how much dust and paint smell was down there like for 10 years. But
that's
yeah,
crazy.
That was really it, man. It was just that. And you know, it spirals. Once you create relationships with people and you talk and you get to know them and you dive deeper and deeper, you learn more, and then you get introduced to other people. And he was doing that with the vendors and stuff. And it was, I think it was probably something I definitely took for granted. Like when we were kids, like stuff would just show up. And I remember seeing grandma's basement, like building shelves and eventually making different rooms so we could have a clean room for assembly. And we had a bunch of screws and all this. And like setting that up I became obsessed with that. Like I just workshops and that whole thing. It just was like my life. I loved being a part of that so much.
It sounds like it was all pretty organic. Obviously, you're playing in bands, you're networking with all these people. Your brother's the mad scientist, cutting things and learning how, and you're the one running around promoting it and getting people on board. Did you guys feel like you were trying to like fill a void in the market, or is it just something that just happened?
Dude, yeah, I don't know. He probably has a different story or side than me. Obviously, like we never talked about it. It was like we were so busy. He was so busy in school, focusing on his thing. I was so busy in school at the time, but also really focusing on No Trigger. I was obsessed with getting signed for No Trigger. I'll never forget when the singer of that band, he came to practice one day with like a big folded up thing of cardboard. And like we went to lunch and he opened up and it was a map. And he traced like Massachusetts to Chicago to Florida and back up the East Coast. And he's like, we're going to record 3 songs and we're going to tour on that EP. And I was just like, crazy, dude. That's awesome. I was like 17 and I was obsessed with Nitro Records. I think we all were at that time. Like just the West Coast thing, the vibe, the music, Rufio and AFI and all the bands that were on Nitro just seemed so cool. And then obviously Wilhelm Scream gets signed to Nitro. So that was like it for me. I was less on the drum thing and more on go on tour and try to play drums in a band. And Scott, my brother, built me a black Sparkle kit with red hardware with our logo, and I took it on tour on that tour. And I just came home with like phone numbers and, you know, pieces of paper and demos of bands. And I was like, I think I just sold a bunch of drums, dude. Like we got a bunch to build. Like
That's so good. Yeah.
I'm not sure how to get paid. Like maybe they'll send us a check or something, like, but we'll figure it out, you know? So yeah, it was super, super organic and just very much diving into the whole thing. And the being on tour with No Trigger and being out there networking helped a lot. And it I think it hit us both where we were just like not ever looking at the competition. Not that we didn't care. We were very much inspired by other drum companies for sure. Seeing what, you know, DW was doing and the innovation and the artists and the way they interacted, it was always really neat for me to like watch that, and it inspired me for sure. Again, West Coast, there was a few amazing drum companies out on the West Coast that I'd watched what they were doing, and that inspired the aesthetic of like the kind of the art and the punk rock vibe, I think, that we inserted into our drums. It was just a very organic way, and the people that we surrounded ourselves with, those drummers, wanted that vibe. I love that kind of art culture and skateboarding and action sports, and being around the Warped Tour, I'd see all those funky, crazy drum sets, and I would dream about them, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Started building stuff like that for myself with Scott, and it was just take photos, put it on the website, eventually go around with a camera and film videos and put it on MySpace, and people connected with that. And I saw that, and it was fun because I was living this like dream of like other people want drums, and like I can connect with them and we can make their drums a reality too. And people in a different state will play what we built in Grandma's basement, you know. And then it rolled into seeing our drums on TV and like with big bands that are like selling gold platinum records. I'm like, that's crazy. All right, you know.
Well, two things come to mind is you can't fake that like entrepreneurial spirit that we'll say your brother had, right? You just can't fake that. And it probably comes from, I don't know, New England, you know, hardworking ethos or whatever, but you just either you have that, you don't. Yeah. You and your brother had it. And two, I'm putting myself into like 16, 17, 18-year-old you shoes. It must have been so exciting.
Dude.
Especially when bands are like, yeah, I want a kit. Like, and you're like, whoa, like.
Yeah, it was addicting. I was addicted to work. And like all of my friends were drummers and my friends were in my band, and like we were just around it, and all we did was think about it. We'd go to shows, we'd network, we'd talk to people, and like getting to meet my favorite drummers and musicians and network with them, like for my band, was cool. You know, that's what got No Trigger signed to Nitro. Was I had a relationship with Sean, the A&R guy, because they paid for the drums for a Wilhelm Scream. And like a couple months later, he called me and I'm like, hey, what's up? Like I thought maybe something was wrong with the drums. I'm like, what's up, Sean? And he's just like, dude, why don't you tell me about your band? And I was just like, oh, I don't know. Like we built the drums for Nick and I was stoked. Like I love Wilhelm Scream so much. That was like what I was thinking about. He's like, well, they told me about you guys and I love it. And so put on a show and I'm flying out. Like Dexter wants to sign you guys. And I'm like, holy moly. So like between that and like the rush of, especially back then, where like now it's easy and hard to connect with people on social media because you can slide into the DM, but there's no telling if they're going to answer it or not. But when they do, it's like it's a rush of like, I'm connected with this person. It's amazing. So back then when bands had their like Hotmail email address on their website for either their webmaster or the band, I was addicted, man. That's how we met the Aquabats. That's how I met Strike Anywhere. I would just go through and email all of my favorite bands. Hey, my name's Mike and me and my brother build drums and like, we love your band and I love your drumming. Like, would you like to get a drum set? Yes. And I'm like, okay, like, what do you want? Black Sparkle with this logo and this. I'm like, all right, cool. And it was truly addicting. So yeah, as a teenager, to be just so engulfed in it and to honestly not even care about the money. I didn't need to make money because I was living with mom and dad. Health insurance I didn't even know existed. None of that stuff mattered to me. And it was just like straight passion and being young and definitely naive to a lot of stuff. But beyond that, like that thrill and that drive of like, this is amazing. And I eventually started to connect the dots of like, we're doing something special here where we care a lot, but that care that we have is definitely coursing through the transaction, where it became so much more of a transaction of money and ideas. We build something, give it to you, go away, never see you again. We were building legit like lifelong friendships and relationships that I'm so proud to still have to this day with so many people that I've known for over 2 decades. And it became this thing where like music is incredible. People connect through music, and through that process, yeah, it was addicting, and it was just so incredible to look back on that. And I'm grateful to everybody that supported us and gave us a shot, man, because we were young kids. They trusted us. Like it's like,
yeah, right.
Literally, come to my grandma's basement and like we'll make you a drum. And they're like, yeah, here's a check. And I'm like, it was cool, man. It was very organic, and yeah, I don't know if we could have recreated that if we tried. It was so.
I don't think you could have. I don't think anyone could have going forward either.
Yeah. No, it's amazing that A, you were able to do all of that, and B, you were at the age that you were and still kind of deliver on those promises. Because I mean, I remember myself at 18, 19, that would have been difficult to be able to kind of keep my shit together and also be doing all this and be in a band and try to get signed. And, you know, you had a lot of irons in the fire, but to be able to kind of make this what it is today still is pretty amazing stuff, man.
Yeah, dude, I had really good people around me, and my dad was such a good mentor for me growing up. And I eventually learned to connect with other business people, you know, because bands were at that point still, and obviously now even it's no different now, but like they were hustling. They were like working and creating side businesses, clothing brands, and, you know, Johnny Cupcakes in Boston. Like I became friends with him, and I was so inspired of what he's doing. Like, dude, you have a store on Newbury Street. Like, how do you, I know what my rent costs in grandma's basement. It's zero. Like, how do you pay for a retail spot on Newbury Street? So just, you know, connecting and keeping your things in order. And I've always been super organized, like almost to an OCD level, but like I was always prior planning prevents poor performance. My English teacher in high school taught me, and it never left my brain. And my dad kind of guiding and giving me those pieces of advice. It was like the perfect storm to allow it. And my grandparents being supportive, and like my grandfather would come help build drums with us and assemble, and my little sister was involved, my mom was involved. We had a lot of help, you know, and it was very much, we never felt like we were alone. And it was what we did. This is it. We were so busy doing it, I didn't have time to think about anything else.
I'm just thinking about the experience of being in a band and being on the receiving end of like Mike SJC at GeoCities email. And it's like, we build custom drums. You're like, I almost want to call this guy on his bluff, you know, like custom drums. How is that even possible type of thing?
Yeah, dude, in our website back then, I thought it was sick, and probably was maybe back then, but like, it was gnarly. So like they trusted us. We had no credibility. No, they couldn't call anybody and be like, yo, do you know this guy, Mike? Like, so yeah. And dude, like the Strike Anywhere and the Aquabats were like the two when we got like yeses from them to order drums from us. It was like, that was mind blowing. So like my brother got to deliver a kit to his favorite band. I got to deliver a kit to my favorite band. Yeah, those sort of moments definitely made it like, all right, the hard work is worth it, you know?
Yeah, no, that's to be able to not only communicate with some of your favorite bands, but to be able to do something for them that they're going to then use to make stuff that you love. Man, that's that's a pinch me.
Totally. Like knowing what records were recorded on our drums. And you asked me if I have a good memory. Like, dude, to this day, like we started probably tracking more of our like process and orders maybe like 7 years ago, like with the actual database. Prior to then, we had no records of like where we ordered certain things. So if people hit us up for like, hey, I ordered a drum in like 2009, I want to add on this to it or whatever, the whole team at SJC, they hit me up to like, hey, Mike, this person. I'm like, this is where we got the rap. This is what it was called. This is the name.
No way.
That's
really?
Where it was from. I remember all of it because I entered all the orders by hand. Like, yeah, crazy. But knowing what like I remember building drums, when like the records they were going to be for, or the tours they were going to be for. I'm like, I had like the in. I felt so cool because I'm like, I know this band's going on tour with this band before anybody else knows about it, and we're building this custom themed out drum set for it. Like, so cool. It was fun.
I was gonna ask you like, what was an early like, holy shit, we have something here, but I think you answered that. Like, you get the Aquabats, you get the Strike Anywheres.
Yeah.
So I'm curious of like, when does it get to the point where you're like, you know, Grandma, we love you, but your basement ain't cutting it, you know?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, well, the one moment I think like that takes the cake easily was we built a kit for Panic at the Disco, and like this is before they hit it big pretty quick. Like they did some shows in Vegas and made some demos, and Pete Wentz and Fuel by Ramen signed them, and you know the whole Panic at the Disco blows up. It was like 2006, I think, and they played on the MTV Video Music Awards with the kit we built them. And just sitting in my parents' house watching it, being like, that was in Grandma's basement next door like a week ago, crazy. That is when all of it started to change. And it was just about the time where, you know, I was dropping out of college. I think my brother was graduating, and No Trigger was busy. Like we were on Nitro, we recorded Canyoneer, we were going tours. I had like a flip phone that I didn't even know how to text message on. The phones were ringing. My email was like just getting blasted, and I couldn't check my email on the road. So I'd come home, and it was just like the shop at Grandma's basement was like busting at the seams. We at that point had another like storage facility for our drum shells down the street. We were painting there because it stunk in my grandma's basement. We had more and more people coming through. Getting boxes in and out was harder and harder. So I was driving home one day from the storage location that we had the drum shells at, going to Grandma's house, and I saw a big garage and it said for lease, and I was just like, U-turn, pulled in, and I was like, that looks sick. Like, what is this? So I called my dad. You know, he's in town, so he's got a business in town, so he knows people. I'm like, hey, do you know anything about this building on Schofield Ave? He's like, let me, I'll drive by, let's see. He's like, oh yeah, my buddy Artie owns that, and I'm like, give him a call, let's see. So boom, opened it up, huge, just wide open space, and I'm like, this is amazing. And he's just like, I'm like, how much is it? He's like, how much do you want to spend? I'm like, I'm spending zero right now, so it's close to zero. So we made a sweet deal, took care of us, and so we signed the lease, and the Swellers were on tour, sleeping over my parents' house, and I was like, yo, we got to move a bunch of drum stuff down the street. They were like, load up the trailer. We got room on top of our gear. Let's go.
Yes.
So we used like No Trigger's rig and the Swellers rig, and moved out of Grandma's basement, and yeah, it was sad for sure. You know, we had so many memories there, but when we moved to that location, that's when everything, like, I remember everything changing. It was legit. The pressure of like paying rent and like filling the space. It was a lot for sure. That was a huge moment for us. And we were there. We were in that shop for like 6 years, I think. But yeah, that was that whole time right there, like 2006. 2007-ish was crazy.
Oh, at that point you're going from, you know, it's not a hobby because you're busy, you're making stuff for people. It's a business, but it becomes a real business because you got a rent and you know, you probably had to hire some people to help.
We hired people. My brother hired a kid that my brother is still doing like student teaching to get his degree from college. So he was teaching in Hudson, Massachusetts, and so there's this kid named Josh that he likes Hidden in Plainview, and he heard we made drums for them, and he likes SJC. Like, how does he? I don't know. He knows about the brand, and I was like, crazy. Have him come down. So he comes down, and we hired him, and then we had a couple kids that went to Nichols College coming in and helping, and yeah, I had no idea. So my brother's like, we gotta open a bank account, and like we gotta get someone to like help with our books and like all this, and I'm like, okay, like whatever. Like we were just, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was so anxiety provoking at that point for me because I was like, this is so much more than just the art of like building a drum, you know. But we did learn a lot. It was that was the time of like graduating from Grandma's basement and that kind of whole thing, you know.
Well, the thing is, and actually this came up in a recent interview we had a few weeks ago with Nathaniel Shannon. He is a photographer. He just did the whole 10 Years of St. Vitus book. It was his first book. And we talked about how if he had known how much effort it was going to take to put that book out, he probably wouldn't have started. And that's where I'm going with you. It's like, if you knew what it was going to take, maybe you might not have done it, you know? And I think you were at the right age where you were naive enough to be like, we'll just kind of figure this out.
Yeah, that's true for sure, man. Like definitely later in life, you understand the like, looking at the risks and all of those things. And I don't know, man, I feel like we are so passionate about it. We still would have, and we definitely like persevered through so many challenging times where like, I definitely at that point never thought about throwing in the towel. I had people around me, you know, accountants and attorneys and stuff like that being like, what are you doing? Like, you should probably stop this now. Like, stop it before it gets too crazy. And I'm like, no, like, what could be crazier than what it is already? Granted, I had no idea what they were actually meaning. And I found out, obviously, by keeping going. But yeah, I don't know. I advocate pretty hard for anybody, any age, to, if you're passionate about something, go for it. Because like, nothing's easy. You're going to work a regular job or you're going to go do whatever thing. That's still going to be hard. Like, you're still going to have trials and tribulations in that. Why not do something and put all your effort, definitely more effort and more hours, but into something that, you know, fuels you and doesn't actually feel like work, as cliche as that saying is. And I never knew what that was like otherwise, other when I was like 15, 16, working at Dunkin' Donuts in a grocery store, you know? So I've never really worked anywhere else for anybody else. It's always just been this. And, yeah, I advocate again pretty hard for that, for people to not be fearful and anxious about the amount of work it's going to take, because you're going to build a skill set that is going to be so much different than you learn in school. It's going to be real life, hands-on,
100%.
face, get up, build the confidence, figure it out, do it again, fall on your face again. You know, just rinse and repeat that. So yeah, it was a lot, but there's a lot of pitfalls in everything, and so. Business, band, creative, brand, whatever you're trying to do, that's part of life.
You couldn't have hit the nail on the head any better. No matter what you end up doing with your career or your life, you're going to have things that are difficult. You're going to mess up. You're going to find a way to maybe overcome that mistake you made or mistakes you've made, and, you know, keep grinding towards being good at what you want. If you're worth anything, that's what you're going to do, right? You're just going to be those people. And there's always going to be people that maybe not naysay per se, but are bristle at the newcomer coming into the scene and doing this thing. Do you have any of that?
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. I'm not bitter about any of it at all, but it's that kind of, like you were saying, the Massachusetts grit and that like DIY thing that I'm real proud of, you know? And like, I definitely, growing up in that scene, for sure, I had the poser kind of syndrome or imposter syndrome, whatever they say, of like, you know, maybe I shouldn't be here. Or certainly when you're in a band and the internet's starting and, you know, MySpace is a thing, and then eventually whatever came after Facebook, whatever, like when you're putting out demos or songs or a photo, or we're making drums and we build this wacky drum set that a customer liked or customer wanted, and we put it on the internet or whatever, you're going to get the naysayers because it's not for everybody. And my whole thing was always just like, all right, like if you're going to talk crap about my band on the internet or in person, like that's fine. You don't have to like us. Do I care? I'd love it if you liked us, but like, I'm not going to lose sleep over if I don't care. Like, but I'm just not a fan. And I've never been like anybody online that's like, I have an opinion obviously, but I don't have the energy to be like, that sucks. Or like, I don't like that. That could have been better. Because to me, the coolest thing about art and music and that whole culture is that there is no right or wrong. It's art, it's music.
For sure.
It's like what you feel and what somebody else hears and takes in. And if you don't like that drum set, fine. What do you like? Because we can build it. If you don't like my band, you're gonna go talk crap. Let me hear your band. Let me hear your band. And if you're so much better, okay, cool. Yeah, I either like it or I don't. Like, I don't think that stuff really necessarily matters, but maybe it was just me keeping my head down, and my dad and my grandpa definitely just being like, F the naysayers, like seriously, and keep doing your thing. If you like doing it and people are resonating with it and you're happy, then keep pushing. And I think that's really powerful for sure. And then when we started doing trade shows, like SJC, we'd go to the NAMM trade show. And dude, I was definitely young. I was like mid-20s, and we'd roll in with like no trigger guys, 10 of my other friends, and we would just infiltrate a trade show, which I had no idea, you know, bright lights, vendors in suits, and like all the other companies like buttoned up. And there we are, like probably rolled in hungover, or some of my friends were drinking, whatever, and just hanging out. And we, you know, probably would have buttoned it up a little bit better, you know, knowing how many eyes were on us back then. But, you know, we rolled in and made an impression one way or another, right? Whether it was good or bad and people liked us or hated us. We definitely had some naysayers then, and that hurt, you know, because I want to impress people with the company and things like that. But it just continuously added on to like, yeah, I'm not going to let that stuff bother me, or I'll learn from it. Like if there's something valuable to pull from that comment or some sort of opinion, cool. Thank you for the feedback. I'll try better next time on that. Like, thanks.
Well, I almost, in my head, I equate it to like the Pearls and the Ludwigs are like, you know, the conglomerate, you know, Budweisers, and you guys are the micro brews coming in. It's custom. You're in tune. You're boots on the ground. You're in a band. People know the owner. It's just a different experience. It's a completely different experience. And yeah, I don't know. You guys are the hazy IPA, you know, the East Coast.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's cool. And I love that. I do. Like, there's nothing wrong with being the Budweiser or the major, you know, brand. Like, I think that's cool too. And I certainly, through my, you know, through the years of being in running the business and stuff, I definitely got the itch of like, oh, what's it like to be the major? Like, maybe we should try and I should get an investment or whatever that is. And like, I like being the micro brewery. I like being the boots on the ground, finger on the pulse, because that's what drives me. Like, I don't want to just be, you know, I don't know. They are different. It's a different thing. And it drives me definitely being boots on the ground and having that interaction with the drummers, because that's, you know, where I came from and that's what I did. It's just built into me. And everybody's built different. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just a matter of preference and really what your business.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, it's a thing that we strive doing this is to be that kind of different, not necessarily the same type of cookie cutter. You're going to hear the same thing that you heard on every other podcast, music podcast. So we definitely understand the feeling of boots on the ground, having conversations with people, going to shows, finding out what that person wants in their drum kit, and then making it happen for them. That's a great way to be. And yeah, fuck the naysayers, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, and dude, like, I feel like music, I forget who said it. Like, I'm sure it was like Dave Grohl or somebody. There's a quote out there about just like, if you like a band or a musician, find out who their favorite band and musicians are, right? Because they were definitely inspired by somebody and something along the way. And that's usually a mass array of different creative things. And that's the formula of like being inspired by different things and going down that rabbit hole and seeing what scratches your itch and stuff like that. So with that said, that formula and that culmination, everybody's different. And that's where people come together and you find a new band and you're like, wow, that's kind of cool. I never heard that. And me learning about what drummers wanted, not just how they wanted it to look. That was definitely the funnest part, is like, you want a drum set that looks like the NHL rink for Jake from 4 Years Strong. Like, sick, let's do it.
That's awesome.
Or the Bruins parquet floor. Like, yeah, let's go. But like finding out like, all right, I want it to sound or feel like this because I heard this record and like it changed my life, because that was the 311 moment for me, hearing that snare drum. So me going down that path and getting in the mind of our customer and artist and drummer, I was always just like, I never even knew that band existed. So there was never any like, you didn't know this band existed, you're a loser. It was like, no, dude, check it out. I was always welcomed in with open arms, and it was expanding my horizons so quickly. That opened my eyes to that, where I was just like, you got to be respectful of the differences of opinion and different things that are out there, you know?
Well, it's disruption. I mean, most people, when they think of disruption, think of like technology. This is disruption. Like,
yeah.
You know, I saw like the Dookie snare drum, and Tony's got the poster there. Like, I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it probably hadn't been done before, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, that was, I forget exactly how that happened, but I became friends with Mike Fasano, who was drum teching Green Day in the studio. And I was drum teching for Rancid at the time. And I was flying to Oakland, California for a couple Rancid gigs and rehearsals. And Mike Fasano and I were connecting. He's like, oh, we're in the studio now in Oakland. I was like, dude, I'm going to Oakland next week. So I brought some snare drums out for Tre to try, and he tried them and liked them and whatever. And I was like, we gotta get him like a bouquet of roses, like when you're courting somebody and you want to like impress them and get their attention, like you get them some flowers or whatever. So I was like, we're gonna build a Dookie snare drum. So we scanned in the Dookie record and like, you know, took the top half, the bottom half, and made it so it would go on a snare drum and built it. And I was in California and like gave it to Tre, and he was like, "This is crazy, dude! Like I never knew you could do anything like that." And we printed it on the wood so you could see the wood grain pop through. Those types of experiences for me were like still like incredible, like milestone checks every single time, you know. But yeah, we were always trying to do things with textiles and different types of art on the drums, painting or wood burning on the shells, just pushing the limits and the boundaries. Because like, again, back to the like, it's art, it's music, there's no right or wrong. Like, why not? The big guys never tried wood burning a drum, maybe not that I knew. I don't know. I'm going to try it. Let's splatter on the hardware, whatever, see what it looks like, you know?
Do you have anything? That story is amazing. The Dookie, I mean, that's a seminal record for, I know, Anthony and myself. It's one of the reasons we're friends, you know, 30 plus years on doing this. So to hear that story is pretty cool. Do you have any other ones kind of like that where you were like, let's push the envelope here, let's do something a little different and see if we can't, like, you know, do something new?
Yeah, for sure. It was probably like 2010 to 2015 was that phase for me where it was just like Vans Warped Tour was it. Like we had like 50% of the bands on the Vans Warped Tour. So it was always this like that's our trade show. That's our time to really show,
that's true.
Infiltrate the scene, showing them the cool stuff SJC can do. So, you know, A Day to Remember wanting a Donkey Kong themed drum set. We the Kings wanting a DeLorean themed drum set. You know, 4 Year Strong wanted a Jaws shark themed drum set. And it was like, I was never satisfied with like, we can just print a design on the wrap of the drums and send it on its way. It was like, no, we're going to make big wood hoops that are like 3D cutout of the Jaws mouth and like airbrush, like gal green, you know, algae on the teeth and things like that. The DeLorean kit, we're going to make the bass drum have doors that open and smoke comes out like the car. It was always that. And it became a culture thing where the drummers were calling me like, I heard Alex Shellnut from A Day to Remember is getting this. So what can we do to one up it?
Yes.
Oh, dude. So my creative juices were flowing hard. And it was, you know, it was definitely one of these things that was like probably not great for the books because it costs a ton of money to make those things, the R&D and the materials that went into it. But it built the brand. Like it really got us to a point where all these drummers were like, SJC, they'll go for it. And we just had that reputation. So yeah, the Tre Cool one, honestly, for me was like by far the biggest. And building all his stuff with him was always so fun. But all those Warped Tour bands for sure were the ones like when my team saw me coming down from the office with like papers, they were just like, oh gosh, like what's he got now?
He did it again. This motherfucker. He did it again.
Yeah.
It was always real fun. And like Panic at the Disco was always one of those bands that pushed the limits with their records and the artwork. And the Butcher, who was playing in the Academy is at the time, was coming up and staying at my house and wood burning with me and like, hey, let's do this on a badge and let's make our own epoxy badges. And it was crazy, man. We definitely built some cool stuff, but yeah, we tamed it down for sure over the last probably 10 years or so.
What I love about this, Mike, is I'm looking at you and I'm hearing you and I can hear and feel the excitement, which a lot of times, like, you kind of lose that over the years. We've been doing this podcast for 4 years, and you're always kind of chasing those early highs, you know what I mean? And it sounds like you've had those along the way. And I'm sure that's inspiring, keeps you going. I know that's kind of how it is for us. It's like, conversations like this that, kind of reinvigorate you.
Yeah, the energy is huge for me. Like, and I'm big on just like manifesting and emitting and having a vision for certain things and going down that path in my brain. I can literally, I get exhausted actually go because it'll hit me where my brain will explode, and it's like connecting the dots of a issue that the company may be having or a strategic thing that we're trying to figure out, and solving those problems for me is the funnest thing. Or like, oh, we should try to make drums for this person because there's this like cool charitable thing, or like this kid that we could link into it or whatever. And I try to do it as often as possible, is to allow myself to have that brain space to continue to dream and continue to try to push the envelope of what I want to do with the brand and what we can do making drums. And yeah, it's never rubbed off. And I don't know, what else I do, but I love doing this. I love the connection with the drummers and seeing what it does, and getting gratitude from our customers of like, this is like a dream come true for me. Like, thank you guys for welcoming me in. Like, that's so important to me, And so yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I definitely I'm grateful, and I feel lucky to be able to still do this.
Right on.
Yeah, and the energy is definitely still there. Talking to you about it tonight. I mean, we can. It's late on the East Coast, and you still have the energy for it. So that's awesome stuff.
My days lately, this is fun for me to talk about this and reminisce, and I definitely pull late nighters, man. Like lately, I've been doing like 5 a.m. to like 10 p.m. just getting stuff done. And that's the thing. I'm so grateful that we're busy.
Yeah.
24 something odd years into this thing, like people still want drums from us. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing something right.
we were on the website doing some prep, trying to find some stuff to dig into, and the thing that we saw, one of the things we saw that got us kind of both excited, and we just love the quote, "You support us, we support you." What does that mean to you?
Oh gosh, yeah, dude, that came out of like just straight, and some of the stuff that I would type over the years of like these like mission statements or whatever, they always felt kind of like sales pitchy, and I don't mean to do that, but obviously you need stuff like that when you're like selling gear and selling a product, but like it's about endorsements, right? Like in the music industry, there's such a cliche and there's such a thing of like, I'm endorsed by this company and whatever. And I remember feeling that too. Like I remember when I was with No Trigger, like I wanted an endorsement from a cymbal company and stick companies and things, and I thought it would just be tons of free gear and whatever. But as I started building drums and creating these relationships with the drummers that are touring and like sign on labels and stuff, and then we get customers, young customers, their parents calling, like giving their credit card and buying drums to their kids, like that's where I started really seeing the ripple effect of like, okay, these drummers, Cyrus Baluki and Jay Weinberg and Josh Dunn and all these dudes are like influencers, and they're influencing these young kids. That was me. That was me, like 100%. And that never changed. That will never change, I don't think. Wherever technology goes, wherever social media goes, music will always be here. And I think that young kids will always be inspired by things, skateboarders, whatever it may be in this world, right? And so when these young drummers would reach out and like they'd be asking about, am I endorsed? Like I want to get endorsed. And I'm like, well, like it's not like I'm going to give you a free kit, or like I can't give you 50% off. Like I'll give you a deal if you're touring and like doing stuff. But like, look, like the prices that we set I'm not trying to gouge you. Like it cost me $700 to make the drum. At that point, especially, I'm like, I'm going to charge you $800. Like I need to like pay for like lights and stuff. Me and my brother don't need to get paid. So obviously that changed, and we needed to like have a healthy margin and all the things you need to do for like a sustainable business and whatever. But it just became out of that, where like organically I'd be talking to these drummers and I'm like, you're the one supporting me though. Like you're endorsing SJC, SJC's endorsing you. It's a reciprocal thing. If you are on tour or if you're in the garage and you break a lug, I'm going to send you one. Cause like, I know what that feels like to be on the road or have something like that break. You're bummed. Like, I don't really care if it's under warranty or not, if it's a lug or whatever. Like certainly if you left the drums out in the rain or in the sun, or your singer jumped off the bass drum, I got to charge you to like replace that stuff. And I can,
right. Yeah.
I can see why that happened, but normal wear and tear, if you just got it and you're taking care of the thing, like it's a reciprocal thing, truly. And I saw it myself when I'm on tour and I'm hanging out at the merch table or packing the drums, and someone comes up and like, dude, that's a cool drum set. Where'd you get it? Oh man, actually me and my brother built it. Like that's the connection that I think a lot of businesses miss these days, especially with the social media, digital
100%.
era of like, everybody's going to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, the connection with your consumer is the word of mouth, right? That's it. So yeah, we just kind of developed that of like, and I truly mean it. And I do see the naysayers out there sometimes, like, oh, SJC just says everybody's endorsed because whatever. And I'm like, no, it's truly just honestly a special thing for me because these drummers are the ones that you don't know. I don't know if the kid that just bought a drum set last week, who's 14 years old, who's inspired by Josh Dunn, he could be the next Josh Dunn in 2 years. I have no idea. So I'm going to treat them like a rock star so that they tell their parents and their friends and their music teachers that the dudes at SJC treated him like a rock star because he is, and he deserves that. And those people will hear about my brand in a positive light and go, if I ever want a drum set or find out that someone wants a drum set, I'm going to have them hit SJC up. And that worked really well for us. And yeah, maybe it's a sales tactic that you could say, but it works well for us. And it is straight up the truth. Like it's the most real thing that the brand has as far as like a mission statement type of thing. So anyway, I know that was a long answer. I apologize, but I'm truly passionate about that and people understanding that because it's a business. We have transactions and there's revenue and all that great stuff that you need for a business to sustain, like I said. But that component for me is like a non-negotiable. You know, it's like these kids seeing their photo up on the SJC family page alongside their favorite drummer. That's the best. And the fact that we can facilitate that is pretty cool.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, there's bi-directional value, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And I don't think you could, so Mike, if you were in a suit and you were at the, VP of whatever, and you were trying to like fabricate that relationship, yeah, different vibe, whole different vibe. And it wouldn't come across genuine. I think you getting back to like, you can't fake that. You can't fake growing up in VFW halls and hall shows, like in those connections and knowing what it takes. Everyone kind of does their part to make the whole thing work. Yeah. And we resonate with that because we kind of have that ethos with this podcast. Like if you come on and give us time and we have a great conversation, we connect, like, yeah, if you have an album coming out in 5 years, we'll promote it. We'll do our best.
We're talking about it. We're putting it out
whatever
there.
we can do, know?
Awesome. The community. It's all about community.
For sure. Yeah. So how does one go about becoming part of the SJC family today? Like, do they go on the website and virtually build it, or do they call you, or is it a mix of both? Yeah, we have a pretty robust sales channel. We've got Sweetwater and Guitar Center and a handful of other smaller stores over, throughout the country and in Canada and some in Europe and stuff like that are selling our drums, which is still new to me, selling to big stores like that where we're not transacting one-on-one with the customer. It feels a little weird for sure, but they do a great job. All the dealers that we align ourselves with are they understand like the rock star experience that we want to give. Our website, you can go, we have a customizer where you can put splatter, different custom badges and stuff on the drums. We've got just our sales channel, our sales team, where you want to FaceTime us, text us, DM us, email us, whatever. Like we answer everything very quickly. Like I'm crazy about writing back. I write back to pretty much every email, like within a minute if I can. I'm just always on my computer. And the whole team at SJC is really good at that, like making people know that they're important. We can confirm that. You're very quick to the email. Yes.
Yeah, it's just it's my PTSD of, I think, touring with no trigger prior to Wi-Fi existing and coming home to lots of emails. Like I never want to feel that again, So, but yeah, so we definitely like scout bands, right? Like if I'm listening to Spotify or my neighbor across the street they're musicians and they're in high school. So every time I see them, I'm like, what's cool? Like what's cool now? Like what should I be listening to? I'll go to festivals and hang out with my friends and be hanging out with the drum techs and meet people and check out bands. And I'll never go after a band if they have a relationship with another company because I don't want them doing that to me. But if people hit us up or a homie is just like, hey, you should check out this dude, or like they reached out, wanted to be connected with you for SJC, we will have relations like that on the artist relations side and we'll bring them in and they're, we're a small company. So it's not like we're slinging out free drums left and right. Like we'll do a discount, we'll do certain things that are monetarily strategic for the brand to grow and get in front of a lot more and get that influence. But it's very, very organic. And just probably by the time this podcast comes out, we're going to be announcing Shannon Leto from 30 Seconds to Mars playing SJC, which is so cool. Like I think that's awesome. They're massive and they're in a way different genre and playing in front of a way different, massive audience than we typically have. And that one came from Stevie from Monty's Fan Club. Like, he plays guitar for them. And I have a podcast that I called Loyal to the Craft, and I had him on it and just connected. And there's a lot of different ways that it happens, but we get quotes coming in from our website, and Matt, who's our main sales guy, is picking up the phone and calling them and texting with them and getting to know them. And it's a real personal thing. It's a, what do you want them to sound like and look like? And let's build it. We'll mock it up and we'll send you a spec sheet to make sure it looks what you want. And you sign off on that, and it goes through production. We'll send photos on social media throughout to hype you up. And it's a whole thing. It's like it's fun. You watching them be built, you're waiting a long time to have them built, a couple months. And I don't want to just keep them on ice. I want to like keep them engaged with what we're doing. And yeah, that's the fun part for me too, seeing like the hype of like, oh my gosh, my drums are here, unboxing video. That you can't recreate that, like taking the drum out of the box and smelling it for the first time, and like seeing this creation that you dreamt of for years, probably up until that point, Yeah, so that's how you come in, and from there, that's like, for me, the relationship starts. Like, again, we've never been one for like, delivery happens, see you later. Like, yo, tag us, email me, DM me, let me know how they sound. Send us your new band's record when you record on them. If you're coming through town, like, stop by the factory, or like, let us know so we can come to the show. So let's send our film crew out. If you have a videographer on tour, like, send us stuff. Like, let's put it up on YouTube. Like, that's the organic community building stuff that we do well. And they call it UGC, user generated content, these days. And that's important.
It is. Yeah.
I love that. Like, any business guru would look at this and be like, this is not scalable. Like, don't even bother. But it's worked, right? I mean, you're still here.
You know what, dude? At this point, maybe probably even 4 years ago, I would disagree with you. I was like, it's definitely scalable. Maybe it's not. Like, I don't have the intent to scale it wildly. Like, again, back to, we did get some investors to come in, and like we were like, we're gonna scale this thing, we'll do this and that. And I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, that sounds good. I got a taste of that, and I don't want that. Like, I don't think SJC Drums is scalable. It's where it is, and it's maybe it's at the height of what it is. I don't know, but I feel like as long as we can sustain and do that thing, like, I'm happy. And it's been going for 24 years. Maybe it stops one day. I have no idea. I've never really thought about that stuff.
Well, you don't have to yet. We're a ways away from that. So.
Yeah, we're still young, right?
Yeah. Cool. No, so it's, all of this is amazing, just because it's one of those kind of success stories that you don't necessarily hear, especially from your start and your age and your ethos. For it to all kind of pan out to this point is really cool. Like, this doesn't happen very often. So kudos to you guys.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, there are days that I'm stressed and jaded and stuff like that, for sure. I think everybody feels that, but there's definitely more gratitude and just I feel lucky, definitely, for exactly what you just said. The fact that we are still here and all that. Like, we all know, everybody that's been like boots on the ground, and we've got people that have been with us for 20 some odd years playing the drums, 10 years employed with the company. It's a lot of work. Like, we are a small brand, and it's probably not sustainable. It's a very, very transactional thing, very, very particular of like, it's got to be this color, it's got to be this texture, and that's important to hit that and make it right. And yeah, it's a labor of love, for sure. But that's it, we all love it, so we're gonna do it.
So started back in 2000, still going strong. What would 2000 Mike, if he could look in 25 years later and see this, what would he think? Would he be like, how the hell did you do that? Or would he be like, no, man, keep going. You need the biggest drummer in the world to rep SJC.
Both. Honestly,
both. Nice.
There are times when I'm just like, what are you doing, bro? Like, what are you doing? You wonder what it's like to do something else. Like, yeah, sometimes. But then there are times when literally I remember 12-year-old Mike. I remember that time frame. Like, my now that I'm older, like, I definitely have like the milestones of like 5 and 10 years segments of like, that phase was this, that phase was this, that phase was this. And I thought I knew everything, but I definitely didn't. But the thing throughout, like the weaving throughout, is that passion for that, like, finding a band on MTV and like doing a deep dive of recording it on VHS so I could pause it and like nerd out on like, he's got his rack com set up like that. He's playing these drums, he's playing these heads, he's got that throne. And then going to see the band live and then being able to meet that band and be like, why did you set your drums up like that? I have to know. And they're like, it just was an accident. Or the drum tech in the studio learned it from this guy in Europe. And I'm like, I love that so much. So yeah, I think, 20 years ago, Mike, or 25 years ago, Mike would be like, yeah, dude, keep going. Like I've amassed maybe a lot of like stupid info, but like info that back then I would have killed to know. I read every magazine to learn about this sort of stuff. And now I'm kind of at the side of like helping to create some of this stuff, like every time 21 Pilots puts a new record out, me and Josh Dunn are like scheming up how his drums can look different. So when kids see it on a music video or on the stage, he's got a new thing, because I know that's what kids look at him as a drummer. I used to do that. So me having a piece of that kind of formula is cool. So I would have been stoked for sure to be like, dude, like you get to do that? That's amazing. Heck yeah.
Amazing.
Even if you were working at another job and still doing this, like I did with Dunkin' Donuts in the company, I'd probably still do it. I definitely would still do it.
Mm-hmm. As someone who has a lot of useless junk in their head, I totally vibe with and feel you when you say, like, I don't know if I need all that in there, but every now and then you pull from it out of the blue and you're like, I'm glad that was in there. It's there for a reason. You need that stuff, all of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'm glad I like got through that problem, and now I have a solution if it comes up again. You
just never know, man. You just never know.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason SJC is not scalable, is like because a lot of this stuff lives in my brain, and the team has done an incredible job. We brought on a lady named Eva a few years ago, and just super process oriented, and totally changed the way the company runs. And so a lot of that information that we all had in our head, where it was just like, you need to just call Jason or just text Jason. It's just like, that's not sustainable. That's one of the parts that's not. So we're getting that all documented and processed and things like that, which is awesome. I love that side of it. I love the inner workings of a business, but yeah, there's so many times where it's just like, I'm glad I read that article, and I'm glad I went down the rabbit hole for an hour finding where that was made. Because 3 years later now, I need to know where they got that or how they made that. There was a YouTube video I watched once and they did this. Let's try that. That worked. All right, cool. Now the client is happy. We just pushed the boundaries even more with custom drums. Like, I love that stuff.
Well, and that's how we ended up here tonight. Is we went down a little rabbit hole and saw you on Instagram, and hey, let's talk to Mike. Let's make this happen.
That's right. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, the story is super inspiring. I feel like it's an only in New England story. I'm gonna like toot our New England horns here for a second. It's a New England story, so I'm glad we can take credit for it.
I think it's the like we were growing up in New England. I think at a time that can't be recreated, and I think that the community I was in, I was very lucky to be in that, and like everybody was hustling, doing similar things in similar ways, but different like objectives or different kind of like brands or bands or whatever it was. And MySpace was coming out, and that kind of like added to some of the kind of competitive nature, I guess. I remember.
Oh yeah.
We used to play shows with 4 Year Strong all the time, and we would headline at the QVC in Worcester or whatever it was, an old church.
QVCC. Yep.
Yeah. Or at that church in Alston. And then they would headline and whatever. And then they were like, we just got signed to Crush Management. And I was just like, what? And I was like, we got signed to Nitro Records. And I was just like, I think Crush is probably bigger than that. Gosh. And it was just this friendly competition. But New England had that. You got Worcester, Boston, Providence, Hartford. You can get to New York in a few hours. You got shows happening up in New Hampshire, whatever, like Hudson, Mass. Like there was just so many little nooks of little ecosystems. Like Western Mass seemed
Mass, yeah,
a weird kind of like part of the vibe, but not. We had like just such an ecosystem that all of that really did drive me to want to infiltrate and know all of it and be a part of it, whether it was going to a show, playing a show, putting on a show, or making drums for the band that was playing that show, And Yeah. So yeah, New England is a special place for sure. And for us too, a lot of our suppliers were there, like the drum heads and the drum wrap
Oh wow.
shells,
Yeah.
and a lot of that stuff was just all within driving distance. So my brother and I would drive up and pick up the supplies. So we were saving on freight and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, man, New England is a cool spot. And who knows if we were in anywhere else, we probably wouldn't have had whatever sort of like outlier chance that we did being in New England.
Man, Mike, we just met, but I feel like this could be like a Joe Rogan 3-hour like extravaganza, and maybe we'll have you back for like a part 2 down the road. But this was fun. Hell of a story. Still going strong. Man, I'm inspired. Cool. Hey, maybe we'll chat at the 25 anniversary of this podcast or something, you know?
Yeah.
In 20 years.
Jesus, I hope I'm still alive.
You will be. Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. I know, you guys run this off of passion as well, and it's really cool just telling stories, and hopefully people listening got a nugget of information that hopefully motivated or inspired them. And yeah, I'd love to come back. If there are questions, maybe we do some sort of like Q&A for like people that want to start a business or a brand or a podcast or whatever, that we could kind of lend some helpful information. I've definitely gone down the rabbit hole and down the path of falling on my face a lot of times. I've definitely learned a ton about myself and about the business world and about the music industry and stuff. So I'm always happy to share that, especially to like the next generation that are coming up wanting to set themselves apart or create something. So always happy to answer. And if anybody listening has questions, like shoot me a DM or an email. I'm always around.
Yeah, all that'll be in the show notes. If you want to get in contact with SJC Drums or Mike, that's all. Just click on your phone right now, take a peek. Don't do it while you're driving. Wait till you're done.
Yeah. We answer everything. Like I'm crazy about it. DMs, all of it. Just feel free to reach out if you want info on a drum set, or again, just to chat, say what's up. We appreciate it. I think it's a cool part of the community that we're in and the culture. And thank you guys for hanging and chatting and having me on your awesome podcast. And looking forward to coming back sometime.
Oh yeah, man. We appreciate having you. Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.